We are back here with Front Office 2 Fridays, here with a special guest. Guest that we've been trying to get on for a while. We've both kind of been busy, and as you know, with sports, things do come up. With that being said, we're here with Joe Isse, Director of Premium Sales for the Portland Timbers. Joe, did I say your last name right?
You did. You did. Like I mentioned, I've heard just about every possible pronunciation of it. Thank you very much for having me, Victor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that I was able to do that. I think that's one of probably only one. I don't think I've been able to do too well, so hopefully I keep the streak alive for the next one. But talk to us about the director of premium sales and kind of what you do on an everyday basis there at the Portland Timbers.
Yeah, so we operate in a historic stadium, Providence Park, in the middle of downtown Portland. We went through a renovation a few years ago, built out additional premium spaces, Tanner Ridge, the club, some fantastic field table seats. We have a Lexus lounge. We have a three-tier suite space, and those are the spaces that I oversee. It's Our structure is great. A lot of clubs will be built where, if you are in premium, you can only sell premium. If you are in groups, you can only sell groups. I'm still able to sell full menu, but my focus is on those premium spaces. I work with our fantastic VP of sales, Dan Gartner, and our fantastic premium sales manager, Daniel Apesey, to drive strategy around how we're going to sell out those premium spaces um, in a market that's not always uh, known for its corporate space and corporate presence.
I think that you bring it up perfectly, right? A lot of organizations have their kind of specialized departments, and I know I worked for the Sounders prior, so we were obviously big rivals, and so I always loved kind of visiting, obviously where you guys play, as well as just the craziness, because as you can imagine, those games do get packed and stuff, and
Very much
like you
so.
were,
That's
yeah.
one of the best rivalries in sports is the Timbers Sounders rivalry.
Oh, it's incredible, and I'm hoping to because are you have we play? Sorry, I haven't followed too much. Are we playing you guys coming up here though? I'm pretty sure next couple
Up
months maybe.
in Seattle, yeah. We hosted the Sounders in Portland real early in the season this year. But the way the Western Conference is stacking up, who knows? We could end up facing each other in the playoffs too.
That would be sick to play in the playoffs, and obviously I don't work with the Sounders anymore, so I'm now a Timbers fan. That's how I put it. So,
They don't like
um,
you.
yep, on the good side now. So we'll talk more about that obviously later in the podcast. But where it all begins is usually college. It's one of the things that we can control, right? Especially in the sports industry. So you chose Seton Hall University. What kind of led to that decision for going to that university and why?
Yeah. So, um, like a lot of people, I bounced around with what wanted to do for a career throughout my childhood. I was taking a marketing and management course, a DECA class. For those who are familiar with DECA, it's a marketing focused student organization. And my marketing instructor was introducing this new program called Sports and Entertainment Marketing. And I, my eyes just went wide. I didn't even to that point consider that these sports teams that I was following were actually businesses, that they had marketing behind them, that they had finance departments, that they had accounting departments, that they had to operate as a business. Um, this was a lot earlier in the sport marketing, sport management process from a university perspective. So as soon as I heard that, I knew I had to sign up for the class, and I knew that's where I wanted to drive my career. So as a sophomore in high school, I went to a college fair and I asked every school there if they had a sport marketing or a sport management program. Very few did. Keep in mind, I went to this college fair in Portland, Oregon. Um, a lot of the schools said, "Well, we don't have that, but we can build it for you." It's like, well, you really can't. Some of the schools that had it, they had it through their College of Education or the College um, of Health and Science. So it wasn't really what I was looking for because I wanted something that was business focused and business specific. The two schools that had something that were along those lines were the University of Oregon and Seton Hall. Seton Hall's program was sport management, which meant it was very broad. I could take sports marketing classes, sport finance, sport law, sport management, and get a well-rounded exposure to the industry. University of Oregon is very sports marketing driven. It's a great program, but it's very, very branding and marketing focused. I also come from a family of Oregon State Beavers, so the concept of going to school in Eugene was not something that I was super excited about. But those are the two schools that I applied to. But I was very focused on going to Seton Hall, one, because I liked the well-rounded approach, and two, because of the opportunity for internships that the location of that school offered. For those who aren't aware, Seton Hall is located in South Orange, New Jersey, and there were at that point in time 8 different pro teams within a half an hour campus. So, in Eugene, while they have a great relationship with Nike, and there's a lot of opportunities that the school helps build out, um, during the school year, you're still in Eugene, and that's a good 3 or 4 hour drive from non-minor league clubs. At Seton Hall, I was again a half an hour from 8 different major league teams. So I knew that I wanted to do more than just classroom education. And that's a big part of why I was driving towards Seton Hall and why I was focused on that. They fortunately they gave out a lot of scholarship money and and that made it a lot easier and a lot more attainable for me to attend.
I mean, it's important, right? Money nowadays, you look at all the colleges, how expensive it is. Ironically speaking, I'm wearing an orange hat, not because of Oregon State, but that was kind of funny when you brought that up. I had no clue, so it just shows you how exciting these calls can be and podcasts. And you brought up a good point, right? You had 2 opportunities, and you looked at which one was going to be the best to set you up for success. And then the fact that you were a sophomore in high school doing that, I mean, I was a senior like my last 2 weeks trying to figure out what to do. I had to go community college because I still needed 2 more years to figure out what the heck I wanted to do. So like that speaks volumes, kind of your drive and the fact that you heard that from your DECA leadership team there. I always watched DECA. I was just not really one of those people where it's like I'm not going to help the team, so I probably should just sit this one out and let someone else do it that's a little bit better. But you said like 8 different franchises around is huge versus like you said Oregon, yeah, you can do a lot of cool stuff and they have a lot of great alumni, but a lot of their alumni are outside of Oregon, right? They're on the East Coast. They're kind of more on that side and stuff. And can you kind of go in more of the sports experience you received while you're in college that really helped you to elevate
Yeah,
your skills?
absolutely. So, you know, I did a lot of internships when I was back home in the summer. I started off, my first internship was the summer after my freshman year. Ironically, it's in the same building that I'm working in now. I Yeah, I think you probably commented on it, Victor. I posted a video on LinkedIn shortly after I started in this role. My first internship in sports was as a promotions intern for the then minor league Timbers and Portland Beavers baseball team. Um, and my office was probably about 30 feet from where my office is now in the ticket sales department. Same building on the uh, field level of Providence Park, which at that point was PGE Park several years ago. Um, but again, like took as many opportunities as I could to try and build internships in Portland when I was home in the summer. I did a promotions internship. I did multiple internships with the Blazers in partnership and in community relations and in communications. But again, I wanted to capitalize on what I could do when I was on campus. So I was a manager for Seton Hall basketball. I got to go on road trips in the Big East. This was during the Carmelo Anthony days when he was playing for Syracuse. I got to work for an NCAA tournament team. Um, our head coach was a former NBA player. Louis Orr was a New York Knick, played with Patrick Ewing. I got to work a promotional event for the US Open at Rockefeller Center. But probably the biggest opportunity that I had was a PR internship that I had with the Knicks for a semester. I mean, the biggest media market in the country and I was working their promotions or their PR team, pulling together clips and getting it to the executives all across MSG, um, running uh, uh, box scores throughout Madison Square Garden, working the media room, um, in again the biggest media room in the league probably at that point. Um, this was during the Allen Houston days of the Garden. Stephon Marbury was still playing for the team. Like it was a crazy time to be there, but it's opportunities that I never would have had um, in any other market, any other city. I set up the press conference because the league, the NBA didn't have a large enough media room for all the press that they would need to host. I helped set up the press conference where David Stern announced the suspensions for um, the Indiana Detroit fight. Um, I mean, it's just exposure and experiences that you don't get anywhere else. Um, and one of the biggest takeaways that I had from the US Open opportunity is that, working in sports is not always glamorous. So this US Open event, I was supposed to be lobbing tennis balls to tourists while the US Open played on this massive big screen at Rockefeller Center. Well, the day that my volunteer shift or my intern shift work rolled around, ended up being the biggest rainstorm in New York that whole year. So the courts were flooding, subways were flooding. It was a battle to even try and get there. But I got there and we were covering the tennis courts, the makeshift tennis courts with tarps all day. And so my job, instead of lobbing tennis balls to people, was to take a push broom and push the water off the tarps to keep the tennis courts the quality of the courts fresh and protected. Now you could complain about that and be miserable because that's not what you signed up for. But then I look over at the court next to me, and the owner of the marketing firm who set up this whole promotional event is on the court next to me, push broom in hand, pushing water off of that court. So it doesn't matter if you're an intern, a college student, or if you own the whole company. Just sometimes you just got to roll up your hands, roll up your sleeves, and get your hands dirty. That's how sports is.
It's just crazy, like that experience you said, put yourself in that situation. And then I do find it kind of funny though, like you're basically a tennis kind of grounds crew in a way, which I forgot. I mean, it is obviously a huge thing, but like pushing water with I mean, I haven't done that yet, but I might be able to, further my career. But like you alluded to as well, like it's so important to get that experience and not say no and have that positive mindset. I think since you and I have been talking stuff, it's always been positive for you, which I obviously like to be around people who are positive. I think everyone could agree with that. And you brought up obviously great points and put out some names out there that are very famous. So definitely people are pretty stoked. And I think it's funny with just the PR side too, right? Like that's something that I obviously couldn't do. I think I would definitely get like walked out within the first minute just because of a lot of things I would be not doing correctly. So the fact that you're able to, I
Oh,
mean,
I
adjust.
made my share of mistakes. I sent out the press clippings that were dated for the previous year instead of that day's press clippings.
Hey,
So, had
you're
to go back in the office and redo it. And
yeah, you're just making sure that people are aware of that, right? Like, just double checking they're awake because those press conferences can be long uh, when you think about it, and that's why now they have time limits because people would be in there the whole day, and that's not their job. So,
Mhm.
something I also like to kind of ask our guests in general, or like, what were some sports you played when you were younger? What's some sports that you played? Maybe you played soccer, maybe you did track. I don't know. What sports did you play when you were younger, and what was like the sport that you're like, yeah, this is the one that I would go pro if I could?
I was actually a pretty darn good goalie in youth soccer. Um, but I didn't pursue that beyond like the real youth, like probably second, third, fourth grade. I played everything when I was a kid. I played soccer, I played basketball, I played baseball and t-ball. Um, I was involved in as much as I could be involved in because I just love being outside and playing. In Portland, it's rainy and nasty half of the year, so You can't always be outside. Um, but my neighbors had, basketball hoops in their driveway, some on the front of their house, some kind of those mobile ones that you have to fill up water in their base. But everybody had some version of a basketball hoop. Everybody in my family has a basketball hoop, so that's the one that we kind of gravitated towards because it was the easiest one to play. It's the one you needed the least amount of equipment to put together. So basketball was the one that I stuck with the longest and played the most and probably got the most passionate about. Was never all that good at it, but basketball was probably my uh, truest and nearest and dearest sport.
Hey, I played 1 year of basketball, fouled out the first game. From there, kind of knew that I would probably have to give it to someone else to carry the torch. So, I mean, the fact that you were still playing, and I remember those basketball hoops with the sand, with the water. We used sand. I don't know why. Now looking at it, it's stupid, but we also weren't good because we were out there shooting a lot. I think we made like a couple of them
Mhm.
at most. So. I'm just always curious to kind of hear what people's
Oh yeah.
passion and stuff. And you're obviously was a goalie too, and you could have went pro potentially. You're just giving people an opportunity
If I just
to
stuck
go.
with it.
Exactly, man. It's all about that. You're like,
Even in basketball, I call myself a defensive specialist. So
there we go. Hey, you need those nowadays, especially with how many points they're scoring. It's crazy, like 130, 150. Some of
yeah.
them, like, come on, guys, let's just like spread the love and just go a little bit easier. But moving on to your sports experience, you worked with the Portland Trailblazers, and something that's really cool is just seeing that development. Any organization, seeing the development over years of going from one position and going up in the ranks there. I'd be just curious on how that obviously came out, and then just the experience you saw at each position you moved up.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate to have great leadership with the Blazers. Tyler Howell was the director of inside sales when I started there, and he was moving up within the organization as I was moving up. Um, he was a fantastic coach. He gave fantastic feedback. I had always said that I wanted to be in a leadership role. I did not get the first opportunity that I had applied for. But he didn't just move on from that. He gave me good feedback as to why I didn't get the opportunity, and it gave me something to work on. He helped build out a plan for me. He saw potential in me and said, "Look, if you want this, you have to be able to explain why you want this, as opposed to just saying that you want the title and you think it should be the next step for your development." Um, so, inside sales, I got very excited and passionate about sales because of an internship that I had in college. And I fell in love with sales as the best path and best track for me. Um, I was able to lead my department in revenue my first year. I walked into a room that I felt was full with people who were better natural sellers than I was. So I said, if I'm going to be successful here, I'm going to have to do things differently than everybody else because if I do the same thing everyone else is doing, I'm not going to be where I want to be. Um, I tend to be a little bit of an introvert. Um, Maybe I was underselling my abilities, but I was very impressed by everybody else's ability to talk and engage and connect with folks. Um, so I just said, look, if I'm going to be successful, I'm going to have to outwork folks. And I said, my strategy is just going to be make more calls than anybody else because the more stuff I throw at the wall, the more stuff's going to stick. And this was a 21 win Blazers team that I started out with. Best players were Zach Randolph and Sebastian Telfair. And so we got hung up on a lot. And so it was not hard to have a lot of short phone calls and move on to the next one. Um, so I led the team in revenue that first year. I moved into a group sales role. Um, and that was an adjustment because I went from a role where I was being handed all these single game buyer leads to a role where I had to go out and build out and prospect on my own. And I had never really been shown how to do that. Um, I had a couple of really, really good sellers sitting next to me who helped me with that. They're both in incredible leadership positions now. Phil Horn down in Sacramento and Kevin DePlaga, who was with Miami. and now I think he's in the Midwest. Both fantastic. I owe a ton to both of those guys. Um, but they helped me not only refine my approach to sales and groups, but also help me make that adjustment and make that leap and say, look, if you're going to be successful in this role, you have to be able to manage your time. You can't just try and turn and burn phone calls all day because you have to set aside time to prospect. You have to set aside time to research. You have to set aside time to plan out the next group event. You have to build relationships. You have to pour more into each call and each conversation. You have to do the follow up. You have to do the work. It's not just one call, next call, next call, next call. It's a very different job. Um, so it took a year or so to kind of get my legs under me to figure out what I was doing. But eventually, after a couple of years, I was able to lead that department in revenue also. Um, and um, Phil, who was sitting next to me as a salesperson, got moved into the director of group sales role, which was great because he was able to continue helping me grow and to develop and build and figure out what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. Um, it was around that same time that I did not get the director opportunity that I had applied for, which was the director of inside sales role. The feedback that I got was I wasn't able to really paint or describe a clear picture as to why I wanted the role beyond, hey, at some point I want to be VP, and if I want to be VP, then I've got to be director first. And that's a very self-oriented, self-centered way of answering that question. And for the organization and for Tyler's approach to that organization, um, he wanted people in positions of leadership who are going to focus on the people that they're leading. In sports, you've probably seen this, Victor. In sports, you have a lot of great leaders. You have a lot of folks who aren't great leaders. You have folks who care about the folks on their team, and you have folks who care about the numbers that are being produced so that they look good, so they can move up into the next position. Um, so this was an opportunity for me to sit back and reflect and figure, okay, what kind of leader do I want to be? Do I even want to really be a leader? Because it is a totally different role than being a salesperson. Um, but I got the opportunity to step into a supervisor position where we were building out a part-time inside sales crew as a night staff, who were just going to sell after hours. And so I got to sell during the day and then coach and train and develop those part-time inside salespeople after hours. It was more work, but sometimes that's what you have to do to kind of figure out your path and figure out, what your next step is. And that was the right move and that was the right timing for me. Um, so I was able to take on that role. I had the chance to work with a lot of really, really fantastic sellers. Some of the best sellers I ever hired started off in those part-time night staff roles. Um, if they end up watching this, then they know exactly who I'm talking about. Um, Brian, Matt, Rachel, um, Mia, fantastic, fantastic people. Um, And seeing the first person that I hired in one of those roles get promoted into a full-time service role, it was the most rewarding experience I've ever had. And it's something that I will never, ever forget. And that right then, that moment, that's when I knew that's why I wanted to be in leadership. Because I knew that I could be a contributing factor to other people's growth, other people's success, other people's long-term development. Um, Repay what Tyler gave to me for so many years and do that for so many other people. Be a positive impact on a lot of people in their career and in their life. And I just felt so proud. And even today, seeing people post on LinkedIn that they're getting these opportunities and they're moving up and they're getting promoted, knowing that I had at least a little bit to do. And obviously, they're doing the work, they're making the sales, they're making the adjustments. But knowing that I had at least a little bit to do with that success, and I'm at least a footnote in their chapter in their story, it feels really, really good. Um, Sorry. Then I got into the director of inside sales role. based on the success that I had with the supervisor group. Um, and I just continued from there, being able to bring on full-time people and coach and develop people, build out a diverse recruiting process, recruit nationwide, bring people not just from Oregon, but bring people from New Jersey, bring people from Pennsylvania, from Texas, from all over the country. Portland is a rapidly changing market, and make sure that we had people who could speak to the experiences, no matter what the background of the customer and the fan. Um, make sure that we were continuing to coach and recruit and drive and build opportunities for these folks. Even if they ultimately decided they didn't want to follow sales as a path, help continue to grow and promote and encourage their career development. But make sure they're continuing to focus on sales first. So finding that balance for them. Um, and then trying to find a way to continue to grow myself. That's what the director of sales development piece was. Um, it was continuing to make sure we were coaching and developing and building skill sets across our whole sales and service department. Um, and it was building out strategies, and it was collaboration between sales and innovation, sales and business analytics, sales and marketing, and making sure that we were continuing to strive for new ideas and new concepts.
That's great. I mean, I think talking about just management and it's a whole different beast. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I just go manager because that's just how it works in the sports industry and any job.
Mhm.
But like you said, like the fact that you had great people ahead of you helping you get to the next step is everything. And I think a lot of people, myself included, I was in the same boat kind of where I didn't get promoted like I thought I would. And then it's more of just, at least for me, it was an ego thing. I think I was like, oh, I should get that just because like it makes no sense why I wouldn't because I've been here longer and doing stuff. But there was stuff that I wasn't doing and I was not really focused on. Like you said, selling is huge in that concept as well. So like the fact that you're able to see people that you helped move in the side of sales or some other departments very huge. So I think that speaks volumes. And then moving forward, you also had a podcast, which obviously a big podcast guy here as well as the whole staff on front office you. But how did that kind of happen? And I know it wasn't like the longest, and you might be still doing it. We don't know. But how did that kind of form? And then what did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, so that was a really fun experience for me. Again, I was trying to find ways to continue to push myself, continue to push my development, um, find ways to build out our presence. I mean, we were up here in Portland, and I was in a recruiting role and trying to build out our presence of the Blazers and my presence as a recruiter and hiring manager and trainer on a broader scale. I'm very active on LinkedIn already. I was then, I still am now. Um, but finding ways to push that. And this was, I think, there were a lot of podcasts that were starting to come out, but a lot of them tended, I noticed, to focus heavily on VPs and C-level executives, and not a lot of them focused on people at the mid level, the director level, manager level, people who, you know, nothing against people at the executive level, but people at the director level who do a lot of work, and don't get a lot of recognition just in general. So I wanted to highlight those folks, and it helped. That's where my network was. So I went through the process of getting approvals internally. As you probably know, anytime you work for a very publicly facing brand like a sports team, you've got to be smart about what you're doing from a media perspective. But got the necessary approvals and launched it. It's funny because I actually worked with communicated on social media with another podcaster who I ended up working with later on at the radio station to try and figure out, hey, like what type of materials do I need? What type of tools do I need? What software do you recommend for this to build this out? I had one of our marketing interns build the graphics. I went and found a free and I paid her for it, by the way, for the graphics. I found a free use license song to use for kind of the intro of the podcast. And then I started asking for guests, and I just kind of dug into my network. I didn't want to go too heavy with Blazer folks, so I wanted to go, around um, the country, different leagues, different sports, different roles. Obviously, it's got a very heavy ticket sales presence because that's where my background is, that's where my network was. And I love looking back on it now and seeing how many people have moved into VP positions that were on that podcast. Um, it's still available on YouTube. So if you want to go back and watch any of them, search for mid-level exceptional podcast, and you can go back and see. I think there's probably about maybe 15 or so episodes that I recorded. Um, I did not keep the audio only version up online because I didn't want to keep paying for that after I stopped recording it. But after I left the Blazers, I needed to focus my time on the new roles that I was in and taking on at Odyssey and now at the Timbers. So just from a time management perspective, going back to that piece from earlier, I didn't have the bandwidth for the podcast anymore.
Hey, it's all right, man. It's tough, right? Especially when you might have a smaller team and things change on a dime. That's just in the sports industry as well as just, life changes, man. You got to make
Mhm.
decisions that work best for you versus works best for whoever's watching. And so, like you said, you got to move to Odyssey, which I'm not too familiar with. So I'd love to hear more about that. And then obviously talk about your Portland Timbers, experience so far that you've been there, and obviously a big soccer fan now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Odyssey is a radio company. They own radio stations all across the country. They're based out of Philadelphia. But in Portland, we had 7 different stations. The one we were probably best known for was our sports talk station. And so a big part of why I made the move to Odyssey was because it helped me stay connected to sports, but still push and develop new skills by being in a marketing driven, sales driven role, selling marketing and digital marketing um, for the radio station group. Um, Danny Morang was the our kind of Blazers insider. He was the person that was helping me figure out the podcast. He's got a great Blazers podcast of his own that I still listen to religiously on a regular basis called Jack Ramsey's. I was able to connect with people who I listen to all the time on the air myself. This that was my go-to sports talk station. Even though at times when I was selling tickets during the down years for the Blazers, they didn't always make my job easier. Um, but that wasn't their job, right? And then being able to, what I liked too about it is I have not always been a big music person just based on my background um and my upbringing. I wasn't around a ton of music growing up. And so I got exposed to a lot of music and a lot of concerts that I wouldn't necessarily have gone to otherwise. And I got to see a lot of live concerts and a lot of live events, and be a part of building those out that I wouldn't have otherwise. And it was such a cool experience being on that live event side, which is so closely connected to sports, but just a little bit different. Um, but the sports world is very tight knit, and in Portland, it's even more tight knit. So, when the opportunity here with the Timbers came open, Joe Cody, who is our CRO, and Dan Gartner, who is our VP of tickets, reached out to me about the opportunity. And I was excited to have the chance to get back on the team side of sports. So we had a couple of conversations and I jumped at the chance, and I've been here since October, still learning and still digging. Our season runs until October. We're able to bring in Daniel Apesey, who is a fantastic seller on our premium team as well. Driving towards the end of the season, the team has been performing great on the field. The Western Conference is tight, and it is very, very, it's a very, very close race to see where things are going to finish up this year. But I'm excited about the players that we brought in this year, the direction the team is going. We are definitely outperforming the expectations of a lot of not just the soccer media, but even our most passionate fans. I don't think expected to see us in, you know, at the top of the conference rankings this late in the year. So it's been an exciting season for us. Um, and to see how far we can push this, being able to surprise people and to outperform expectations is one of the funnest things in sports. And um, you want to enjoy that and savor it as much as you can. But we're fortunate in Portland that we have super passionate fans, and the Army um, makes this a very, very unique environment. I've said it a few different times internally. Every match feels like an NBA playoff game. Like the atmosphere is always energetic. It's always passionate. Um, Rain or shine or snow, it doesn't matter. They're going to come out. They're going to make their presence felt. Um, and you feel the energy, you feel the noise, and you feel like you're at an event.
Yeah, I can attest. I haven't physically been at a Portland Timbers game. I was going to go to one, but it was sold out. Believe it or not, they do sell out. Believe it or not, with the Sounders and stuff. So, like you said, the atmosphere is incredible. I mean, I heard it from my hotel, so I at least got some kind of atmosphere, kind of like stuff. But people are passionate about their soccer, and the ability that you're able to have there is obviously remarkable. And with that, we are going to switch to our Flash Friday questions here. This is where we get to ask some questions that aren't specifically just sports related, but some of them are. That's just how we do things around here. So you brought up that you're not a big music person, but you did go to concerts and stuff. So you kind of teed me up for this. But what was the most favorite concert you've been to, and slash who was your favorite artist now that you're now kind of a song kind of guy?
Gosh, I have gone to some really good concerts. I think the best two that I've been to, going back to my Jersey days, though I saw him in Portland, it's Bruce Springsteen live in concert. He puts on a show. And then I had some great seats for Jay-Z at Moda Center. So Jay-Z was an incredible, incredible show too.
Those are two opposites, right?
They are.
Opposites attract.
I'll show my age on this one a little more. We saw Wyclef at a smaller venue, and he walked around. He walked down off the stage, and he was walking around, and like he was literally like put his hand on my shoulder. I'm gonna give you one more. Nas and Damian Marley at the amphitheater in Eugene. We were right up against the stage, and that was amazing. So.
Hey, you're fooling us. You said you're not a big music guy, but with that response, I mean, you're gonna be a professional. You might as well be a producer with those takes. Um, and then I got two more questions here. One, obviously, family is a huge part of your journey as well as just the sports industry in general. Um, obviously get to hang out with the family here and there, but when it's off season and everything, do you guys take like a vacation trip somewhere? If so, is it something that you guys do each year?
Um, I love my vacations to the point that it probably got us into trouble with with how much I did. So um we try to do memorable vacations if we can. We don't have anything that we do like on an annual basis. Um well we Portland is great because it's so close to like the beach and to the mountains. You can do, and you know this, being in Seattle, right? Like we can do a weekend trip to the beach a couple times a year and feel like you're getting away. Um, or you can do something bigger and do like a California thing once every couple of years.
Yeah, the farmers markets at Portland I thought was really cool. I
Yeah.
definitely spent too much money, so the budget was looking pretty tight the following week. But great food there, great people. I think it's funny. It's like keep Portland weird, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
think they're pretty chill. So I don't know about that. And then my last question, it's a question I've been asking a lot of people because I'm very passionate and kind of knowing people's answers as well is just a big deal right now is an NIL deal. So put you back at college, and obviously. If you could get an NIL deal with any organization minus sports, it can't be like a sports franchise because obviously
Mhm.
we already know you're going to go for the Portland Timbers there. So, what NIL deal would you do with the company and why?
I mean, I am a huge Disney and Marvel nerd, so that's what comes to mind first. If I get free trips to Disneyland and free Disney t-shirts and Marvel stuff and tickets to the new like Fantastic Four movie, that's gonna be right down my alley. Beyond that, I know WWE's got an NIL program, so like I am not in WWE shape by any means, but
Hey,
um,
that's all right.
you know, take me to the shows, put me on the mic, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, that's probably next up for me.
That's solid. I like how I mean, if Disney and Marvel are listening, hey, you got your guy here in the pocket. So just make the move, send some funds over, let him know what he gets to do. I think it's perfect. And then I do think it's pretty just interesting now with looking at all the NIL deals and what crazy amounts people are getting. I wish I knew that. Granted, I went to a D3 college, so it wouldn't be really any money in general. It'd probably just be like free lunch here and there. But obviously, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast and everything. Before we end here, how can our listeners further the connection, build that obviously foundation with talking to you and obviously trying to help their careers to the next level?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am, like I said, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I am very open to responding and engaging that way. So feel free to just shoot me a connection request. I will usually respond to any request that I get with just a quick message. As long as you don't ignore that message, then then I'll accept the request and we'll start a dialogue. If you prefer email, my email address is jisse@timbers.com. So very, very simple. Go ahead and feel free to reach out to me that way.
Perfect. Yeah, really easy email, so you don't really have to remember too many words or too many letters. So that's always a good sign. And we want to thank all of our listeners who've been listening to this podcast. Had an honor to have Joe on board here, and obviously the last couple questions we asked were pretty fun to get some answers too. So we'll be back here with back next week with another new front office U Fridays.
Arriba, si yo ya sola.